Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here and 4Ks, and we get very excited when a new label announces itself, a new boutique label, especially when they do it in a really strong way, as we have with this brand new label called Celluloid Dreams, which I'm sure if you're deep in collecting, you've probably heard about, but maybe not. And that's part of the reason I wanted to cover their first title, which is a Giallo film from 1972, I believe, The Case of the Bloody Iris. And it is a gangbusters of a first release, I gotta say. The label is in part run by, I guess it's sort of a father-son kind of thing, as I understand it, and it's a really neat venture, I think, just that they would take this on, especially right now. Guido Henkel is the one of the co-founders, and there's a really, really great interview, which, I won't be able to replicate in any way, but go check out the interview that Heath Holland did for Serial at Midnight with Guido Henkel, all about this label, because it's a fascinating story. He seems like a fascinating guy. He does the commentary on this disc, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But just a really neat behind the scenes of starting your own label right now, which to me would seem like a really daunting thing to do. And I admire the heck out of anybody willing to try it. But Guido goes into some real specific details of the work that they've done on this release, the work they're doing on their upcoming release of Black Belly the Tarantula. This is a little insert that's included with the 4K, and they talk about that being their next title, which is a great, a little underrated Giallo at this point, but a movie that I think big Giallo fans know and is long overdue for a nice disc. And seeing this, disc that they've done makes me even more excited for the next one. But yeah, I just loved hearing him talk about specifically getting this thing up and going and dealing with rights holders and hearing things like, we wouldn't license this title to you. We would license it to someone else, one of the other labels, and things like that. Just the sort of prejudice and difficulties of working in a, niche marketplace where there's only so much product in terms of the films you want to put out, and how the expenses involved in terms of, getting the rights and then doing restorations and, releasing things on 4K, including Blu-rays with them, and then, going into the, I'll talk about the lobby cards that they include with their release, which is pretty spectacular. But yeah, just really a neat interview and really got me excited to check out this label. I'm honestly, not a gigantic Giallo fan. I sometimes just can't quite get in the groove with them. I get a little bored watching some of them, even the ones that are considered great. I like most of the ones that are considered great, but I guess some of the secondary ones that have cult followings that are pretty strong, sometimes I don't connect with. I had heard of this film, but I'd never seen it. And, of course, it's great to see a movie like this for the first time in 4K. This is a beautiful scan. There's a little note that comes with the 4K that says, this release's transfer was scanned in 2023 at Cinema Communications Services Rome from the film's original 2-perf Technoscope camera negative in 4K resolution on a pin-registered Aries scan. I like the specific details here. The mono and Italian-English audio tracks were remastered from the optical sound negatives, disc encoding, and authorizing performed by Ryan Maciola at Diversifield Video Solutions. All restorations and color grading was performed at Celluloid Dreams Studios in California. Thousands of speckles and scratches, instances of dirt, debris, picture instability, and other signs of film wear were repaired and removed through a careful combination of digital restoration tools and techniques. Special thanks to Federico Cadeo, Steve Mamet, Esteban Medagalia, and Michael Coronado, Stephen Luke Kennedy, originalposter.co.uk, and Pete Toombs, of course, of another label in and of itself, Mondo Macabro. But yeah, so they have done some great work here. Again, like I said, this is sort of a father-son thing, and I think he had said in the interview something about his son's interest in film and in restoration, and so they just decided to do it themselves, and I just love that. I love that idea, and I love that they're seemingly going to be more of like in the Synapse world of things, meaning they're going to take some time with each release. It's definitely not going to be a monthly release kind of thing. I mean, maybe at some point, but it seems like they're going to take their time, and it's going to be a little slower, but we're going to get high quality product like this as a result. And that's, again, very exciting. So anyway, getting back to the movie itself, I really enjoyed it. Like, it was one of the Giallos that I've enjoyed, that I can remember enjoying in recent memory more than any that I've seen in a little bit. You know, it was just one of those that it's well paced. It has some great stars in it that I'll get into. The police characters, which are often kind of annoying to me, and I think that's part of my problem with some Giallos, is I like a good police procedural, but I also like a slasher movie, and it's like peanut butter chocolate. Sometimes there's a little too much of one and not enough of the other, and I think a lot of Giallos turn into procedurals more than they are slashers, and this has a good balance of both things, and I really appreciated that. I think the other thing is that it has a great killer. I'm wearing my directed by Mario Bava shirt from his credit on Blood and Black Lace, and that's one of my favorite movies of this type. It's sort of proto-Giallo, proto-slasher, and it would seem to be, at least production design-wise and probably story-wise, inspiring to these filmmakers, although that's not specifically mentioned, but the killer is like a black trench-coated, black fedora hat-wearing, and black cloth mask-wearing character, very similar to the killer in Blood and Black Lace, which is one of my favorite killers in any movie. And so that is really cool. And like I said, he or she, I'm not going to give away if it's a man or a woman, the killer crops up with enough regularity that it doesn't become stale for me and go too far into the police procedural side. So like I said, a really good balance of the two things. And yeah, I was just really impressed with it. It just was one of my favorite Giallos that I've seen in quite a while. So, yeah, I mean, the idea is, well, I'll just read from the website because they do sort of a nice job of telling like what it is. From a script by master architect of Giallo, Ernesto Gastaldi, who wrote things like The Strange Vice of Miss Ward, All the Colors of the Dark, Death Walks on High Heels, and a lot of others. Like, one of the things in the commentary that Guido mentions is how much work a lot of these people have done. Like, in excess of 100 films on almost all accounts. Not everybody, but like the screenwriter and I think the director had done a ton of stuff. The actors especially had done just tons of films. So there's a lot of experience on display here. Anyway, comes director Giuliano Carnemeo's sexually charged Giallo debut. He's credited here as Anthony Ascott. Presented here for the first time in 4K ultra high definition. The gruesome murders of two young women send a shockwave of fear through the tenants of a high-rise apartment building. That's one of the main locations of the film, and a good one at that. Got some great staircases, or some like shots where you can look up and see the various floors. It's like very Hitchcocky and almost Vertigo kind of stuff. Very cool. For nude models, Jennifer and Marilyn, it presents a welcome opportunity to move in together in one of the victims' flats. But the aura of terror catches up with them too, and soon Jennifer feels like prey, stalked and targeted by the gloved killer. And by the way, this killer has the yellow gloves as opposed to black gloves. They're like almost like a yellow surgical glove. And the main weapon is this ornate scalpel. It's pretty cool. As her paranoia grows, Jennifer suspects everyone, her fanatic ex-husband, her spinster neighbor, the lesbian from down the hall, and even her boyfriend, but she is determined to stay one step ahead of the depraved killer. Starring Giallo's ultimate scream queen, Edwige Fenech. Strip Nude for Your Killer, Hostel Part 2, alongside George Hilton, who was also in Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward and The Case of the Scorpion's Tail. In their third collaboration together, The Case of the Bloody Irish is pure Giallo fun. That's a Mondo Digital quote. With its beautiful cinematography masterfully contrasted by its brutal violence, the film is every bit as exploitative and blood-splattered as its sultry and salacious turning into a luxurious banquet of sumptuous visuals, sinister chills, and otherworldly beauty. That's another quote. Celluloid Dreams is proud to present this newly scanned version restored in 4K from the original camera negative. It is the version of The Case of the Bloody Iris that you've been dying to see. So that's a great summary of the movie. And it has a really nice, sort of snappy, at times lush, jazzy score from Bruno Nicolai, who is covered in the commentary, as are just about everybody involved in the production. It's a very thorough commentary. I'll get to that. He's a great composer in his own right. He did like Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key, The Red Queen Kills 7 Times, The Case of the Scorpion's Tail, The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave. Also a bunch of westerns like Adios Sabata, The Mercenary, Django Shoots First. But he was also conductor and collaborator with Ennio Morricone on Black Belly the Tarantula and others, no less. But there's some interesting stuff in the commentary about Morricone's relationship with Nicolai and how the two, I don't know if there's different stories about if they split amicably or not, but definitely that Nicolai was an influence on Morricone, and the scores that Morricone did after working with Nicolai are different, and in my opinion, not as good. There's definitely some vocal things, some whistling things, little extra stuff that seems to be present in the tracks where they work together. But anyway, it's a nice score, really jazzy and cool when it needs to be, and helps all the suspense when it needs to as well. So the film is shot by Stelvio Massi, sometimes credited as Max Steel, and he was also an Italian director in his own right, a screenwriter and cinematographer. I guess best known for his Poliziotteschi films like Emergency Squad, Highway Racer, Convoy Busters, but really well shot. And to Giuliano Carnemeo's credit, well edited too. Like there's a couple shots toward the end, like where somebody's like falling and then suddenly we see a hand like slam on the ground, or there's a great shot in the elevator in the opening where the first victim is kind of made to look like she's not in the elevator. She's sort of standing next to a person all in black, and it suddenly looks like she's enveloped in black. I mean, there's just tons of great shots and reflecting surfaces, and it's just very stylish throughout. I really dug it. So Carnemeo did a lot of westerns, including the Sartana films, which got an Arrow set a few years back. I definitely really dug this in terms of directing. I thought he did a great job. Let's see here. There is an elevator attack sequence that it is mentioned in the commentary could be an influence on Brian De Palma and Dressed to Kill, and I think that is an apt one, and I think this is a very interesting attack scene. And although the summary mentions a lot of blood, I would say in terms of some giallos I've seen, Carnemeo is very reserved in terms of the blood itself. There is blood, but there's more suspense than actual blood. You know, we do see people get stabbed and throats cut and things, but I appreciated his reserve in terms of that. So yeah, Edwige Fenech, just gorgeous. Obviously one of the great giallo actresses, but one of the great Italian actors. She's not Italian per se, but in terms of Italian film, one of the great actors of this period, you know, just stunning, and makes a very sympathetic heroine, one that I found I really did kind of worry about, is she going to be okay? And I didn't feel like she overplayed it. So I think that's another thing in some giallos. Some of the female characters tend to be pushed into a certain hysteria, and she does have that, but she keeps it under control to a degree that I felt like was real enough. You know, she's definitely concerned, rightfully, but yeah, it's a great performance from her, and one of my favorites. And there's a decent amount of nudity from her. She even opens with her modeling this in front of this motorcycle. She and her soon-to-be roommate Marilyn, with painted on tops, shirts, like they're just painted on, so they're basically nude. But yeah, just a lot of sexiness to the film as well. George Hilton plays her boyfriend. He did like I mentioned, a couple other giallos and westerns, and handsome guy, a good boyfriend, you know, and potential suspect in this. There's a whole subplot about Edwige Fenech's ex-husband, or I guess ex, who was in some kind of sex cult that she was involved in, and it's interesting that they just touch on that, and he's following her around and stalking her, and they set up the suspects really well, like I said, in terms of, you know, the police presence and the balance between procedural and slashery giallo, and the way that the suspects are set up, and most of them are kept in play through a good portion of the obviously you're going to see some of them where you're just like, oh, I know that's the one, and then that person will be killed, and you're like, oh, I guess not. A lot of these suspects are kept in play till the very last act, and I found myself having trouble guessing. Guido mentioned some rules for Giallo that I didn't fully put together myself, that I won't spoil here because they will kind of give away things about who may or may not be the killer, but he's right, that there are certain things and parameters by which the killer is usually a certain kind of character, etc. I won't go into it, but yeah, I just appreciated the balance and everything. Okay, so in terms of the disc itself, we have this nice slipcase, which is double-sided. Same, it's got the Italian on the back. Then we have the actual 4K, and this does have reversible art, which has the Italian on the back. And one of the things that's addressed in the commentary as well is long Italian titles and how that is a regular thing that happens, and I think that's a fascinating trend. Anyway, so you get a Blu-ray and a 4K here, which is great. I love that he did both, or they decided to include both here. In case somebody isn't 4K compatible yet, this is definitely the kind of movie that will make you want to be, because it just looks great. But then in terms of the actual features and everything, I think all the features are on both discs. I think the Blu-ray and the 4K include all the features. So what we have here is this beautiful scan, new restoration, HDR10. We have the commentary track by film critic Guido Henkel, and it's a very solid and well-researched commentary. I believe it's first track, so kudos to Guido for doing a nice job on this one. And it's fairly wall-to-wall up until the third act, and then I think he allows a little breathing room for some of the set pieces there. But it's a lot of in-depth research went into this. He goes into detail on Carnemeo, the director, the cinematographer, each member of the cast, you know, talking about their histories, their other performances, screenwriter Ernesto Gastaldi and his history. And he'll talk about the other collaborations that some of these folks had with each other that I think is neat. He talked about the Brian De Palma thing, which I totally buy. And he goes into a lot of technical details about the way these films were shot. They were shot in something called Technoscope, and the way that Technoscope uses a 35 millimeter film, it uses a certain part of the frame. I can't explain it right now, but it ends up being cheaper because it uses less of the actual frame, but it still gets this widescreen image. It's 239, 235, whatever. It's a beautiful widescreen image. And so he goes into that stuff, and I like that stuff, but he doesn't do a ton of that. I think he's aware that maybe not everybody's going to be into the technical stuff, but if you're into that stuff, then some of that is here as well. It's just a really, really solid commentary, and I definitely enjoyed it. Then we have like 3 different interviews included here, And at least one of them is new. I'm not sure if the other two. The first one is called Drops of Giallo. It's a featurette with writer Ernesto Gastaldi and director Giuliano Carnemeo. It's almost 30 minutes long. It's about 29 and a half minutes in Italian with English subtitles. And Gastaldi talks about first meeting Carnemeo back in 1955. I think they were in college together, and writing and brainstorming ideas and, aspiring to maybe have some made into films someday. Kind of neat stuff. And then we see a short interview with Carnemeo himself. I want to say only like 2 or 3 minutes of the featurette. And then the rest is Gastaldi discussing his memories of the origins of the case of the Bloody Irish in terms of the story, the kinds of ideas and approaches to Giallo in general that he had based on the many that he worked on. Really neat guy in terms of just so much experience, wrote so many movies. So he talks about his career in general, and yeah, he's a charming, entertaining storyteller, and it's just neat to hear this sort of under the hood approach to writing this kind of movie and the characters and his memory of the folks involved with the production and stuff like that. So a really neat interview with a very experienced man. Then we have Flowers of Blood, which is a featurette interview with actor George Hilton. That's about 20 minutes long. And again, he opens with talk about his career in general, getting started in Westerns, moving into Giallo, talks about working with Carnemeo on Westerns previous to this film and the kind of director that Carnemeo was, how he usually played the good guy turned bad, so that's perhaps why they wanted him for this film. Talks about coming to Genoa, where the film was shot, and shooting there, memories of the production itself, memories of working with the different actors, the final scene and the real danger to it. I'm obviously not going to spoil what that is. How he didn't understand the very, very ending of the film. That's a little something he throws in there, which obviously I'm not going to spoil that either. But yeah, his working relationships with the producer and the various actors in the cast, and how he wanted to be recognized as a serious actor and not just a pretty face. And, a neat interview from an experienced Italian actor. And then we have the Marilyn featurette with actress Paolo Quattrini. That's about 12 minutes long. She plays Marilyn, she's kind of the kooky roommate to Edwige Fenech's character. They move into a flat after a woman is killed. And that's when things start getting creepier. But she's kind of like a scatterbrain goof, and she does a really nice job. It's not quite too over the top, but it's funny and just kind of like, you kind of keep going like, oh man, is she going to get it? When's she going to get it? One of those things, one of those characters that you feel like could get it at any moment, but is enjoyable. So she talks about how she got into acting, her thoughts on acting itself, and memories of the film and her character. Obviously, she had just refreshed her memory by rewatching it. Memories of shooting in Genoa, which I think she said was kind of a gloomy city for her. Memories of Edwige Fenech and some of the other actors doing nudity in films. It's a neat little short interview with her, and I enjoyed that. And then we have this new thing that's an outtake reel, and they have this, it's only about 1 minute and 44 seconds, but they have a little note at the front of it. It says, the following footage is comprised of excess trims from original 2perf negatives for both the feature film and the trailer. This encompasses shots that were either cut down in length or excised entirely in order to conform to Technoscope editing specifications and vintage reference elements. These outtakes were compiled into this featurette for archival viewing. So that's what this is. And then we have sort of an image gallery and the new Italian trailer in 4K resolution, and the English trailer also in 4K resolution. And all those extras are included on the Blu-ray as well. So just a really beautiful set. And then on top of that, so it's a beautiful set. And, some of these labels like to include like little mini lobby cards they'll stick inside the disc. And if you listen to Guido's interview, he is not a fan of that. He just kind of thinks that's silly. And so what does Celluloid Dreams do? They include full-size lobby cards with this set. So when you get it in the mail from them, and I'll leave a link to Celluloid Dreams where you can order it, they'll send it in a big envelope with a cardboard backing on these so they don't get bent. But you get like, what, one... I'll count these as we go. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 beautiful glossy lobby cards that you can frame, you can put on the wall, whatever you want. I just think that is an incredibly classy touch to have these included with your set, and really makes them stand out right out of the gate as some folks who care about presentation, who care about, you know, poster and film art. Like I said, I was very impressed with this first release, and big thanks to Celluloid Dreams for sending this over so I could check it out. But I will definitely be keeping an eye on them moving forward, as this is a heck of a great start. And I'm sure Black Belly of the Tarantula is going to be excellent as well. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.